I think it'd be a good idea to look at some clips of events where parents, students, teachers, and other workers have come together to rally for quality education for all of us.
Great.
Let's have a look.
I'm up here speaking because I don't just believe, I know that education is a human right. What Corbett is trying to do is break down the public education system and privatize education. I believe that no matter if you are poor, working class, middle class, or wealthy, you have the right to be properly educated for the sake of your survival.
The Campaign for Nonviolent Schools is a campaign organized by hundreds of students in Philadelphia from all different backgrounds and communities, and we have a platform of solutions to turn our schools around that are low cost, that make a lot more sense than closing schools down and taking money from them and sending kids to private schools that could push them out.
Underfunding our schools is structural violence. More incarceration and less education will only poison the state of Pennsylvania.
What we want to do today is trying to stop state government from taking our money from the school and handing it to the prison. We want to make our school a place where there is more interaction, more understanding, and students have the more voice and the powers.
There's students, there's teachers, there's workers, there's all kinds of people out here today because we're concerned about the future of our communities.
We gotta fight for the future of all children because they don't have a future for our children. They don't have jobs for our children. Now they don't want to have education for our children. They want to take it and make us think that these vouchers they have is going to save the schools. But actually, in reality, they're taking money from the poorest schools in town. Some of the poorest schools in Philadelphia are being stripped of their ability to educate, so the children can have a future. Without education, there is no future.
I just think it's a travesty. As a public citizen with small children, as a citizen of the state of Pennsylvania, what it's going to be doing for our future. And I currently work for the Penn State system, and there's going to be horrible cuts to education.
What brought me out here today was because I've been listening to my niece speak a whole lot. I've been catching it online and everything, and I decided now it's time to come out and really support them because this fight for education has been going on for so long.
Education is not a business. It is not a commodity to be sold. It is a human right.
We have very limited resources, being as though we're a neighborhood school. We don't have the technology we need. We don't have the books, the paper. Most of the stuff that we learn from and with, our teachers actually spend their money to, fund and get our school supplies. Our funding is very low, and that's the main struggle right now.
People are losing their jobs left and right. And it's not just the teachers, it's also the non-teaching faculty, the non-teaching aides in the school.
Class size is going to rise at least to the contractual limits, which is 30 in the lower grades and 33 in the upper grades, which is the highest in the state.
You're taking teachers who are already working at the maximum limit, and you're taking that the size of faculty and shaving it down so that people are going to be working even past their capacity.
It's just sad that we're going to lose some teachers that mean a lot to us and that influence us a lot.
If we're supposed to be the future of this country, and we're supposed to be the next presidents or lawyers or just people who will make most of the money that's going to come into this country, how are you going to take away our education that's going to get us to that place?
Parents, students, educators, and even more broadly than educators, just all of the workers in our schools. If we're not building shared analysis together of what's happening, then we're going to continue to not understand each other's experiences, and we're going to continue to be oftentimes actually pit against each other as the system kind of continues to underserve our young people and to underserve really everyone in the system.
Me and a collection of parents have been trying to find new creative ways to try to help enforce the involvement of parents in our students' education. Schools need to stop putting up barriers and walls, closing parents out. Believe it or not, we want to be involved. what I'd like to see within the school district or within a community period is teachers, parents, and students all coming together, because without all three components, we cannot effectively make the change.
Could you guys start off by telling us about how Governor Corbett's $1.2 billion proposed budget cuts would affect teachers, students, and the working people in the schools?
Yeah, I think we're looking at massive impacts on workers, teachers, students. Some of the things that keep students in school are the relationships that they have with adults in the school, with their counselors, with their teachers. Those changes and layoffs and having to cut positions has a tremendous amount of effect not only on the teachers and the workers, but also on the students. One of the things that's on the chopping block right now are student success centers. Student success centers were actually fought for and implemented through the work of the Philadelphia Student Union. And they're a one-stop shop for college and career access, for technology, for access to social workers and to counselors. And so to say that those are now going to be cut from our schools is a huge blow to the ability of students to graduate. And when our elected officials and our leaders say that they want to reduce the dropout rate and they want to increase the graduation rate, yet they make these kinds of cuts, there's a disconnect between what they're saying and what they're doing.
And my Student Success Center was the only program in my school that allowed me to go and actually visit colleges and see what it's like being on the college campus and asking questions to faculty and students in college. So that was my only opportunity. So those kinds of things really show when you cut things like that, that is how my school is becoming a violent situation.
How is funding determined for schools?
So from what we understand, a lot of the funding that schools get right now are based around the property taxes that the surrounding community pays. So oftentimes you'll see poor communities have underfunded or even persistently dangerous schools because they're not funded well.
Right. So we have students, for example, in PSU from Overbrook High School, which is less than a mile and a half away from Lower Merion High School, yet almost twice as much is being spent on the education of students at Lower Merion as is being spent on the education of students at Overbrook. And that goes back to the reliance on local funding. Not all of the funding comes from local property taxes, but the bulk of it does, which is a structural situation, which means that, if you live in a poor community, your schools are going to have less money. And there are a lot of people out there, sometimes there's policymakers and politicians that'll say money doesn't matter. But if you look at where they're sending their kids to schools, they're sending their kids to schools where money matters a lot and where they're paying enormous amounts of money to have their children educated. And so for them to then say that money doesn't matter is really a lie.